So, thank you for your participating in the 6th Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity 2021. Now we will be in the paradigm shift in Jeju's investment protection strategy and policies moving forward. I'm today's MC, Ji Song. Let me introduce the chairperson of this session, Professor Ki Chung-kwang, graduated from Korean University and Iowa State University in the United States with PhD degree in economics. Now I'll hand over the microphone to Professor Ki Chung-kwang. Good afternoon, everyone. As you may well know, Jeju has announced the 3 principles of the investment strategy in 2015. And last year in May, we made an announcement for the Clean Jeju and Songgak announcement. So we made a very huge paradigm shift. And today, we're going to have a talk under the theme of the paradigm shift in Jeju's investment attraction strategy and policies moving forward. So firstly, let me introduce the speakers and panelists, and then we're going to have a presentation. So the first speaker is Professor Bu Jo from Jeju National University. So he's now active advisor for various projects, and he has in-depth understanding on this topic. And the second presenter will be the Namu Lee from Jeju National University. And also, he's the president of the cooperation between the industry and the academics. And now he's focusing on the researches and industry utilization with the marine creatures from the Jeju Ocean. So he's the bio expert. And the second panelist is Kyung-gap Hwang from Samuel PwC. So as the official content, he is now serving as the director of Samuel PwC. So for more than 20 years, he served as a director for the real estate sector at Samuel PwC. The third panelist is Minho Park from KT's environmental business team. And now he's working for the AI and digital projects for the KT, and he's the lead of the environmental business team. So it seems a very significant project, and actually I'm not a technical expert, but now he's working for a project to make the assessment facility to measurement facility of the fine dust. And the last panelist would be Yongho Chang from Singapore University of Social Sciences. Currently, he is working at the Business University with the focus research of the climate change and energy and economies, and also the electricity market. So now he is doing an active research on those fields. And also we have more panelists. The fifth panelist would be Christopher Lai from Hong Kong Trade Development Council Korea office. He came to Korea a few months ago, and really nice to meet you, Christopher. So he can have a comment about how to strengthen the relations between the Korea and Hong Kong. He is making great efforts to strengthen the relation between two countries. And the last panelist is Chandap Yoon from Khalifa University of Arab Emirates. Professor Yoon is an expert for the information security and currently working for the cybersecurity as well as the blockchain technology, which has a high interest of the public. So with the background of those expertise, he's working as a professor for the engineering and the computer science. So I just gave you the brief introduction of today's participants. So first, we'd like to hear presentation from Professor Joe.
Good afternoon. I am Jo Buyan from Jeju National University. Some of the English are written and also there are some Korean written here on my presentation. I know there are some difficulties you trying to read my presentation, but I will try my best to take this time to deliver what I have prepared. You are looking at the investment attraction here, and we use the term FDI, foreign direct investment. Through stocks, they are buying the stocks on Korean market and they are doing the direct investment in this term. So FDI for Seoul is a stock exchange related, but in Jeju it is very different. So other than FDI, there is DDI, the domestic direct investment. And I will going to view FDI and DDI in different perspective, which is related to Jeju Free International City. That is the reason why I have made this into my theme of today's presentation. Sorry about the Chinese words. Some say poor is good. If you are poor, it works. This is showing up in the Yeokgyeong, and if you are poor, if it's not sufficient, you have to change. That means poor is connected to the new resolution. So if the things become very serious, you just don't have to hope for a change. You really have to make some efforts to make change. And at the last minute, you will going to have epiphany, and this will make eternal change. And with this environmental change, this will make you change, and this will make you make sustainable change. So because of the environmental change, big change, that is the reason why we are having innovation, disruptive innovation, and this is the reason why we are all here today to discuss about this issue. And let's look at the perspective of this. When we talk about international city, this means human and capital freely moving in between. This is the purpose of a free international city. People, commodity, and capital. This should be freely moving. And because of COVID-19 and because of the other restriction, it is difficult for us to do it right now. So, people moving freely, we are partly successful. However, if we look at the commodity, movement of commodity, there is about 20 million tons of logistics moving in and out from Jeju Island. The logistics that is coming from the land are mostly construction material. So by opening our trade and market, we are luring materials to Jeju Island. But this is very much different from the Korean business model, which is very much depending on export. Free movement of capital. In 2006, when we first designed this plan, our plan was to become the financial hub of Northeast Asia. but we don't have any financial institution in or any branch in Jeju Island. So we don't know what is making us to become financial hub in Northeast Asia. We have made some success and partial success with the movement of capital and movement of commodity or material, but with capital we have made no attempts at all. Like I have mentioned, foreign capital investment cannot be FDI is very much different from the concept in the land area. So in that respect, if we look at the corporates in Korea in 2019, 350 billion had moved to Jeju Island. And if you look at the chart, there is no consistency. If you look at Ulsan, there is industry. And if you look at Gwangyang, Yosu, there are consistencies. But if you look at Jeju, if you look at corporates in Jeju, there are call centers and IT centers, but they are single unit moved to Jeju Island, and all they think about is work and living balance. And tourism development investment had been implemented so far. Some of them are stalled, but most of the investment are focused on tourism industry, not the commercial industry. And after some point, the level of investment had decreased somewhat.
때문에 나타난 현상은 아니지만
We are having a decreased level of foreign investment, and our GRDP index is facing negative. So why is this happening? If you look at from the 0 point, we look at people, we look at commodity, and we look at capital. But we were too much focused on people. And if you look at the whole system, we try to induce investment, but inducing investment is making the company ecosystem, corporate ecosystem. And if you want to build that, you have to have a driving force. But if you look at the situation, our focus is under the tourism investment. And our governance is focused on the tourism investment. These are the public corporate and private and local companies. We have English Village and other complexes. Those projects had been done, and after those projects, these companies are now pursuing the housing projects. And originally, there are some duty-free projects which is trying to source the capital that are necessary for those development. And some of the developments are very much duplicated by the different departments in Jeju government. And if we try to lure investment, what is the purpose of the investment? I think the purpose is very vague. We have Kakao, Nexen in Jeju. They are very big companies, but if we compare it with Hyundai Motors, they have second, third, and fourth subcontractors. They have ecosystem just for Hyundai Motors, but what kind of subcontractors are there for Nexen and are there for Kakao? If those companies are expecting to create more jobs based on Kakao or Nexen, but what about the subcontractors? But with those characteristics of IT businesses, we cannot expect to have multiple subcontractors moving to Jeju Island. Without having a fabrication factory, those fabless companies are having a great success these days, and they are building the ecosystem by their own. And I think it is too late for us to think about the building the ecosystem. And if we compare it with Hainan, we have a very similar geological condition. We're both island, we're both tourist spots. So the purpose here, they are pursuing free trade, and they are focusing on the infrastructure business, which is the baseline of the forest industry. But Jeju started first. Jeju started earlier than Hainan. We also focused on English village building, and we also focused on tourism development. But we only focused on those. We only focused on tourism and English village. And there is one industry, and the related industry is surrounding that industry, or there is other type. There is just one type of industry existing in that zone, so it is very much concentrated. So people want to visit that area. But the high-end technology industry zone in Jeju, we don't know the identity of this zone. It is very vague. So, from our perspective, we're still living in COVID-19 era, and this crisis can be an opportunity. We used to have many people visiting Jeju, and now we are living in untact era, and people are living their lives at home. So tourism-based industry, people living, people meeting, this industry will not be the only way for us to evolve. So this industrial ecosystem will get the opportunity after the technology development, but with the experience of real industry, we still have the experience. Not just the 5G, but we also have an experience of smart grid. And with these various industries, we have not succeed with implementing this industry. And with the direction for the future, I cannot say all these factors are the reason, but there are some possible reasons. If we look back, investment inducement, we're very much focused on tourism, but we should also focus on trade and finance. Building the ecosystem and targeting the ecosystem building, then the role of the institution will also have to change. And with the public sector and public businesses, their role, the organization of that role should not be the same. Maybe those organizations can change, and some of the development that they have planned before are mostly completed, and some of the development were very much wrongful. So we don't know if those divisions for development should still exist. And there are some duplications of this organization, and we should really have to think about dismantling these duplicated organizations and divisions in this government. So we have duty-free
지금 이 지정 면세점
industry, and they have the right to own their business in Jeju, but they should not focus on development, but they should also work as a source of building the ecosystem. So if we look at the industry ecosystem, it is about building the ecosystem, not building the job. not making the job. If we build the ecosystem, it will make the job eventually, and that will make virtuous circle. We should not come up with something very brand new. We should think about evolving that something we used to have. We already have some of the technology that are necessary, and some of the photos that you're looking is Ionic 5, and some of the technologies had not been mentioned, but it is PNC, which is very important. It is plug and charge. If you just plug in the car, it will get automatically charged. This electric vehicle will get the electricity, and this will have the capability of selling electricity. The electronic car will have the capability of building this industry ecosystem. And in this respect, we need to think about cybersecurity, ESS, battery recycles, and targeting these companies will make us efficient enough to build this ecosystem. We had industrialized and we had experienced, made some assessment. Recently, we are redirecting some of the perfume companies and designer companies, and we should stop focusing on the wear and cosmetics. We should also focus on basic cosmetics. When about the blockchain, on the third plan of the international city, we are planning to become global blockchain hub city. So the target companies can be STO, ILO, and if we manage to lure these companies to Jeju, then it will going to make it easier for the capitals to move freely than before. So I think it is very good opportunity for us to think about the cooperation between the industry and technology. And about the logistics and infrastructure, we are only discussing the logistic infrastructure in the land area, but we should think about the free zone for the all logistics. We should make it very easy. We should make it very easy for free movement and become the area for a free movement. Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation, and also thank you for complying with the time limit. So Professor Joe briefly talked about the trend of the FDI, and I made a brief calculation. So from the 77 to the present, about over 30 years, we just made an FDA amount of $11 million, which is much less than our expectation. So from 2003 to 2011, well, actually we could see a great increase, but it's still not much enough. So from 2013 to 2017, we could see another increase. So we have a data until the year of 2018, 2019. So during the last 5 to 6 years, we could see the increase about 50%. So in the figurative perspective, it is not that bad. But we can have implication from the data. So we have to build the ecosystem of the industry first for the FDI. And for that, we have to think about the CFDI and the cosmetics. And lastly, blockchain. So we have to create ecosystems, particularly for those industries. And that's the sectors we have to think about to make the paradigm shift. So from now on, I'd like to have a discussion with our 6 panelists about 44 minutes. So we will make a discussion in the order of the introduction that I made. So I already gave a brief introductions of today's panelists. So I'll just give a detailed introduction. But before starting our discussion, I'll talk that we're gonna have a Q&A session. So for the Q&A session, we're gonna have questions from the audience. So for the participants here, can just raise your hand to make a questions. Or for the online participants, you can leave your questions on the link on the YouTube channel. So first of all, I would like to hear comments from Professor Lee from Jeju National University. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Namho Lee. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the great presentation from Professor Zhou. So it was a well explanation about the establishment of the future ecosystem of the Jeju industries. It was really interesting and grateful for me to that he mentioned three specific industries, because my focus is also related with the cosmetic industry. So today, I'd like to talk about the bio industry of Jeju. So not only I like to share my own idea about the future method or direction of the bio industry in Jeju, and I want to make 3 points on that idea. So here we are presenting at the sessions with the experts and the policymakers in that industry. So after sharing my ideas, I hope that it can be helpful to build ecosystem for the bio industry in Jeju-do. So firstly, as Professor Zhou explained, the skincare product for the beauty industry should be expanded, so the boundary should be bigger. And I am strongly agree with his idea. So my first suggestion would be, currently there's an industry led by the Ministry of the Health and Welfare, which is titled the attraction of the fostering foreign employees for the K-beauty industries. I hope that Jeju can join the project. According to the media press, the Ministry of Health and Welfare will have a meeting with the vice. Had a meeting on last 27th, and one of the agenda was that the project will be held in Osong Industrial Complex. So at that complex, we will train about 8,000 foreign experts. And for this project, the validation of the study has been already finished and completed, and also the national budget has been expanded to the project. Although it is a national project, I hope that Jeju is also one of the appropriate candidates to proceed with the project for the K-beauty project. So overseas employee project for the K-beauty industry, there's constant demand to foster those expert or the employees, because overseas students, and also the main problem for the overseas students and employees is visa problem. And actually Jeju is operating visa exemption for the overseas students. So I think it is reasonable for Jeju to join this project. So those overseas students and the trainees will have a high demand for the K-beauty industry, because they're under the trend of K-pop culture, and they can be the ambassador of K-beauty naturally after they go back to their countries, and they'll use products made in Jeju and will engage in sales of those projects. And of course, there can be opportunity for us to export our product to other countries. And also, Jeju is a tourism city. So based on those exchange, I think it will be a great asset to create in the future, and that's my aspiration. So, and there's also a sympathy to create those like Jeju style K-beauty industrial the projects, because there's a government support for the budget in that project. So I believe if the plan is created, we can join the project. So we have to actively find the method or the resolution to join that project. And actually, I wrote the article about this, but here I like to reiterate our plan or my aspiration to join the project, because this project itself is closely related with the features of Jeju tourism, bioindustry, and the cosmetic industry, and Jeju has a high potential to afford the success of that project, and also is highly needed to expand the industrial boundary for Jeju itself. In my second point is about the post-COVID-19 era. So we can think about two ideas: is the acceleration of the digitalization as well as the new challenges and opportunity for bioindustries. So we can connect those two items because the shift in the ecosystem is also fast. So it is really difficult for Jeju to respond it promptly. Because of that, we can actively promote or establish more related research bodies inside Jeju. So by doing so, we can be a catalyst in response to those changes and shift by establishing more institutes, because like we face limits. We face a limit of capabilities only with like domestic researchers and the experts. So my hope is to promote to establish more like global and overseas research institutes in Jeju in order to respond to actively respond to the post-COVID era. And my third point is, as Professor Joe mentioned, we need to think about the health sector. So, like in accordance with the Songak announcement, we highlighted the significance of health. So we have to think about cleanness with like health together. So the clean is an ecological approach. So we can include the contents of health into the concept of clean, because we have a lot of features and items of a clean in Jeju-do. But in order to do so, we need data, contents, technologies. So in order to create those contents, we have to make a lot of cooperations. And that will be the cooperation between the industry and academia. So we have to find and plan policies to strengthen those cooperations. So let's add or include health into clean, and we can find the way to do so from the cooperation between industry and academia. So those are my key points for this discussion. And actually, I have more idea, but because of the time limit, I just briefly mentioned my points to all of you. So by proceeding with those ideas, I hope that we can make our ecosystem more successful and healthy. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I don't need to summarize the comments, but I'd like to say that I'm strongly agree with the first idea. The first idea is about the K-Beauty project led by the government. So the Korea Exchange Foundation is now residing in Jeju, so we can make like new cooperations. So now the central government is doing the new southern and the new northern policies. So in according with that, we also did a 6-month training for the Korean instructors. So we already had a very good successful case for the Korean projects. And also we can induce like participation from the private sectors. So actually one of the nation who has a high interest in this project is Bhutan. So we can invite like a young generation from Bhutan and provide industrial training. So we can give like we can teach them the related technologies, and after like the training, they can go back to their countries and be an ambassador naturally. So I think we can like take lesson from those cases. So next we're gonna have hear the comment from this Mr. Huang.
What I'm focused on is real estate investment and finance, so I will focus on that. I took an airplane and it took about an hour to get here, and I thought about Jeju and what is the specialty of Jeju. I don't think about tourism. I don't think about any other industry. The tourism industry or tourism development industry and China history world had been implemented successfully, and I know that there are numerous projects that are like that. And in my perspective, I think we have to think about if there is another way for investment paradigm shift. And if I travel around Jeju, now it is COVID-19, before it was global financial crisis. Those can be the excuse. Those were the excuse for those stallment of project. If they secure the land, if the time goes, and they will get their equity value increased, that is the reason why they are not hesitating with implementing their project. Or maybe I think we should find a long-term investors in Jeju Island. Recently, LH and corporate, they are not buying lands anymore, they are renting lands. So for investors, it is a very big loss because land rent is about the it takes about 5% for the tax, and this is very higher. It is very higher compared to interest rate currently. So the land renting business can be a very good revenue source. The reason why I am suggesting this rent is because for 40 years or 50 years, private investor or other kind of investors, they can rent for about 30 years or 50 years, and they will get the profit for 30 or 50 years. Of course, for 5 or 10 years, it is very difficult for them to escape after 5 to 10 years. So I think maybe it is time for us to consider long-term investors who will take care of our land for 30 or 50 years. Maybe in that term, they will going to think about it more seriously. And I don't think we have choose wrongful investors. We have checked their financial sheet and we have looked through their documents, and then we choose the investor. So 50 years, 30 years of plan, maybe this should be the appropriate direction. And another thing is that
아니면 우리나라 같은 경우는
for Jeju Island or for Korea, there is free trade zone. So for foreign investors, they have benefits. Of course, we need to have benefit to induce investors. I know that there should be some benefits for the rent fee, but we should not give them benefits only anymore. We have to have regulation, we have to have some kind of responsibility or obligation for those investors. I think Pangyo is a very good example. Of course, they were focusing on housing projects, but in Pangyo there are many IT businesses and other businesses also want to move to Pangyo. And if we look at the agreement, there are some benefits, but there are also penalties. And the biggest penalty is that you have to finish the completion. You have to complete the construction by when. If you don't finish it by that time, you have to pay this much of a penalty. So the companies that are actually moving to that area,
20%만 임대를 하고
they rent 20% only and they buy 80% of the land. And this can be the good way for their investment. I think it is better to have a long-term investor rather than having a short-term investor who will just escape from all this responsibility. And I think we should think about this plan at the beginning. Thank you very much.
아까 처음
Like you have mentioned, land rent is a very good idea. I know that there are many horse farms disappearing in Jeju, and maybe there are some ways that we can utilize this area with rent.
So we're gonna hear the comment from Mr. Park from KT's Environmental Business Team. Good afternoon, everyone. I am in the Park from KT's Environmental Business Team. So at KT, I am focusing on the artificial intelligence and the DX. So well, actually, it is like buzzword for a lot of industry and the government as well. I'm in charge of those sectors. So in terms of Jeju and the context of Jeju for these sectors, we can think of the clean and tourism. And for the other reason, Jeju is one of the most popular region in Korea. So in that Jeju, we can connect as infrastructure for the communications and the networks. So I'd like to share the cases that we build our digital transformation in Jeju. So now we have a lot of like topics for the fourth industrial revolution. So 5G, big data, IoT, blockchain, and those like technologies and items are really active. And in every business sector, digital transformation is a buzzword. So now we're entering the eco-friendly era. So in that regard, a lot of sectors that has been done by human labor are automated and increase the economic efficiencies, and that's what a lot of enterprises are doing. So by doing so, there are a lot of benefits. So we with the technology of 5G, we can speed up the business process and low latency. So with those technologies, we can introduce like auto driving vehicles. And also we can install a lot of sensors to like gather and collect data from the smart buildings and the other like facilities. And also with this system, we can make analysis based on the big data and cloud. And a lot of products are applying the technologies of artificial intelligence and blockchain. So by doing so, we can control or the measure of the climate change or the carbon emissions or the self-driving, or also we can introduce the local currencies. So by applying those like technologies, we're promoting a lot of business projects. And the role of the communication carrier, we can have many benefits to apply as technology. So for us, KT has a public phone booth in all across the countries, and we established sensors for all those public like telephone booths. And by collecting the data from the telephone booths, then we can make analysis and provide the information which is useful for daily life. So and actually, I prepared a lot of like slides. So like I'll show you some like examples and the cases that we applied our technologies. So I'll skip some slides here. So here you can see that we use the information. Actually, we call this imbalance of the information. So we can recognize the imbalance of the information and make an improvement. And to do so, we can utilize and apply a lot of applications. So we can do the real-time analysis of the information imbalance. So we can do this in real time with informatics system. So if you enter the tunnel in your car, and also we can just apply the mode that your car turned into the navigation mode by shutting the window up automatically. Also, if you're on a tour, you can find the safe way or the safe route automatically, and this is what a service that we're providing at the moment. And this service is open to the public, and based on this platform, we also provide the weather information with the data and the measurement from the local governments and the central governments. And also we are introducing Giga Genie, the artificial intelligence speaker. So you can make a question. So how's the weather outside? Can I make data, or can I go out? Or I can even a question when should I operate the air quality devices inside home? So you can ask many questions to our artificial intelligence devices. Also at the hospital or for the communities with less favorable health status, we can apply our technologies. We also have numerous air quality devices, air quality control devices. So we can manage air quality in a smart way and in an appropriate level. And for the apartment, we can also apply our technologies. So we can make a notice or the announcement for the residents, the level of the air quality or the air quality level, and for their daily life activities. And also we can cooperate with the Ministry of the Environment in order to give information by the control tower. So we don't need to go to the site, but we can do the remote control of those factories and other facilities that are sensitive to the air quality. And also buildings, our technology is really effective. So when we apply this technology to the buildings, so we can operate the air quality device based on the changes of air quality. So it is more than 6 million devices already installed to the building. So based on the air quality, we can control the frequency or the operation hours of the devices, and we can save energy and the time. And by saving energy, we can also reduce the carbon emissions, and it can be really helpful for the climate change. And also for the auditoriums or the sports centers that gathers a lot of public, so we can control the sprinklers or other air quality control systems. For the construction site or any other site which has a lot of contaminants, if you establish system that can control those areas 24/7, we can have a lot of benefits. If there's any complaint from the private site, it cannot be monitored during the nighttime or at the holidays, but by applying the systems, we can do the real-time management in a very transparent way. And also the manager can do the management by himself by using these remote control systems. Also here you can see some images on the slides. So we're now using a lot of water to control the air quality, and this is what the local government is using to control the air quality in their daily lives. But actually, they have no information about the air quality. But if they do the correct analysis for the air quality, they will have precise information when to or where to sprinkle waters. And also for the automotive sectors, we can apply a lot of technologies. So we can give information of the air quality to the navigation. So we can inform the drivers to go to the safe way. And also we can apply this technology to robots. So the robots can work instead of people to control and identify the air quality and even do the measurement for that. So here I'd like to show you the video to show our technology on this air quality control. So this video will show you the 25 districts in Seoul. So it was recorded when the wind comes from the northwest. So the red area means the poor air quality, but the green area means the clean air quality. So for the 25 districts in Seoul, you can see how the red spots are changing. So even within the same city, you can see the differences of the air quality controls and measurements. So by collecting data, we can make analysis like in real time. So far, with all the collected data, we can make a map, air quality map of Korean Peninsula. So, and we can find out the poor area and make an effort for the focused efforts. So here you can see how we are making air quality control in real time. And with the flow of the winds, we can give proper information to the citizens to make a proper response to it. So also we did a really interesting experiments about the air quality. So after rain, we can see there's a huge improvement of the fine dust level. So also with the communication data, we did a test for the public who are very sensitive to the health status. So if the air quality is really poor, we could find out that the 5.6% of the population don't go out. And this will be my last slide. And as you can see from the slide, there is a park named Tapgo Park. So and a lot of seniors love to visit the park, but they go to the park regardless of the level of the air quality. So because they are really indifferent to the information. So there we could see the demands that we have to give proper information to those senior levels in a immediate way. And also, if we park our car, and we have a lot of vehicles in Jeju. And also, we could see the reduction of the fine dust effect when the driver put their cars on drive mode and parking mode. So if the drivers change their mode from driving to the parking, then we could see the reduction of the fine dust. Thank you very much for the great comments. We could see a lot of cases that KT is utilizing a smart technology. So, I'd like to hear more ideas like how Jeju can apply the KT's technologies. So from now on,
We will get the panels from the online. I have given the previous panelist about 7 minutes, but I will give you 6 minutes only. I'm sorry about that. First of all, Professor Zhang, hello. Hello. Can you hear me well? Yes, I can hear you well. You only have 6 minutes. Yes, that's enough for me. Jeju, I really love Jeju, but I cannot visit Jeju, so I feel so sorry. I have heard about Professor Joe's presentation, and thank you very much, three panelists, for your wonderful ideas. I am working in Singapore Social Science University, and I am teaching economy in the university, and my name is Tang Kyung-ho. And if we look at the condition, the market soundness and the size of the market can be the reason. Quality labor, how much quality labor can you get it, and those can be the factors that decides FDI for Jeju. I will going to say 4 things. First, if we look at the clean announcement in Songak, Jeju, Ulleungdo is using a very much electricity. And if we don't resolve the issue of electricity or energy, it is difficult for us to achieve clean area like Songak. And secondly, considering the energy issue, which industry should come to Jeju? Industry that uses small energy with high productivity and with high added value. What can be that? It will be creative technology, designing technology, or component design, or art, or clean art would be appropriate. So with high productivity, high added value, those kinds of industry will be appropriate. And third, Professor Zhou mentioned three things: people, capital, and commodity. Natural capital is one of them, and man-made capital or machinery will be one. And lastly, there is human capital. I know that Jeju is full of natural capital,
에너지를 고려해 볼 때,
but if you consider energy, we have to think about human capital. How much we use the human capital will going to make us coexist, which is, I don't know the specific detail, but I know that if the theme parks are used as the place that can hire human capital, then we can build Jeju a place that you can work, place that you enjoy working, you enjoy living here. Then this will create a area for that. Lastly, I will tell you about smart grid with clean nature here and with industry. This can be possible. Then with clean nature and with Songak-based Jeju, this will going to nurture industry and this will going to develop economy. And if this is possible, then not just for Korea, but for all around the world, this kind of development IP direct investment will be for those investment, Jeju will be a good model. This is the end of my discussion. Thank you very much for listening. Professor Tang, thank you for saving time. I have a question, a very impulsive question. Yes, from your perspective, you lived in Hawaii before, and you also visited Jeju. From investors' perspective, which one would you choose, and what is the reason? Thank you for asking. I have studied in Hawaii and I have lived there, but they are not interested in developing industry. They were all focused on developing that nature, and they are going to augmental development. However, they did not have a industry that can help the development. So they are focused on high-end agriculture. So their first purpose is nature preservation. But if you look at Jeju, Hawaii is very far away from all continents. But Jeju is close to China, Korea, and Japan. So considering that geological benefit, place where you can live, place where you work, who would not come to Jeju with that advantage? If you emphasize that benefit, the equity will come to Jeju. Thank you so much for your answer. Next, we have Christopher Lai from Hong Kong Trade Development Branch. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hi,
아, 네,
I can hear you. Can
네,
you hear me?
반갑습니다. 통역이 되고 있는 걸 알고 있고요. 자, 우리 지부장님 편안하게.
So please make your comment for about 6 to 7 minutes, please.
No problems at all. Thank you, Professor Kang, and thank you for having me. I lead the career office of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council here in Seoul. And my job is to reinforce economic relations between Korea and Hong Kong and to identify new pockets of growth. So obviously, I'm here today to talk a little bit about Hong Kong. Now, as you mentioned, I've only been here for a few months, so I am not an expert on Jeju by any stretch of imagination. And obviously, every economy is different. It has its own set of unique circumstances. And Hong Kong and Jeju are, of course, different. But I do believe the story of Hong Kong's industrialization and development have some valuable lessons. FDI is crucial for sustainable development for every economy. And in general, the prerequisites for attracting FDIs include an open economy, a skilled workforce, and the potential for growth. There are, of course, other reasons, such as the natural beauty of a place. Jeju is a perfect example. And of course, natural resources. Being a small economy with limited natural resources, Hong Kong was not an obvious destination for FDI. What we did have were unique geographical advantages and an emerging manufacturing sector. And when we talk about location, we're not just referring to Hong Kong as a gateway to China, but also the fact that Hong Kong is located within a 5-hour flight radius of what today amounts to be half of the world's population, an important element to the development of our manufacturing and logistics sectors. Now, to capitalize on that and to enable sustainable and market-driven growth, the Hong Kong government established a market-friendly administrative and regulatory regime and largely refrained from active industrial planning, but instead embarked on ambitious programs to strengthen our social fabric, including public housing and education, land reclamation, and infrastructure investments. As mainland China started to open up in the late 70s and early 80s, and our factories began to relocate north of the border, Hong Kong also began a dramatic transformation of its economic structure from manufacturing to services, all of which was achieved without faltering overall growth rates, as well as just an average unemployment rate of 2.5% between 1982 and 1997. And it is here you can clearly see the legacy of the social investments that I mentioned earlier. The growth of financial services, professional services, and trade-related services sectors, of course, led Hong Kong to becoming an international financial center, as well as business and logistics hub. In fact, nowadays, the services sector accounts for more than 90% of our GDP. We also capitalized quickly on the opening of the Chinese economy. We became, and still is today, the biggest foreign investor in every single province in mainland China. We were the preferred destination for foreign capital to access the Chinese market. And later on, we also became the preferred conduit for Chinese investors' overseas business and investment ventures. According to the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, some 60% of Chinese cumulative outward FDI were channeled through Hong Kong. All this means that Hong Kong has sustained a deep and deployable pool of capital that will continue to play an important role in regional and global growth. The observation here is that to attract FDI, sound fundamentals, supportive social infrastructure, as well as market-friendly policies are not enough. Ensuring a vibrant and local economy conducive to entrepreneurship and investment, along with responsiveness to evolving environmental factors and global trends, are equally important. Hong Kong has always anticipated the winds of change and adapted accordingly, from developing new markets such as East Asia and the ASEAN, to capitalizing on new opportunities such as fintech, healthcare, and green finance. As the global economy enters a new phase, the ability to pivot and address disruptions is more crucial than ever. And I'm sure the new directions suggested by my esteemed fellow panelists earlier will definitely enhance Jeju's attractiveness as a FDI destination. Hong Kong and Korea have long been strong trade and investment partners, and I have no doubt that Hong Kong investors and Hong Kong companies will be very, very interested in Jeju's transformation. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you again.
땡큐. 네, 감사합니다. 시간 잘 지켜주셔서 감사드리고요.
Thank you for making your comments in time. So actually, we have time left. So I have a sudden question for you as well. So Hong Kong, of course, has a related bodies for the FDI. So is there any like a related organizations for the FDI in Hong Kong? So it'd be like appreciated if you can give brief introduction of those organizations. And also, is there any like specific reason that Hong Kong has an interest in FDI in Jeju Island?
Thank you. Sure, I'll try to keep my answers short within the remaining time period. Hong Kong does have an investment agency or inward investment agency that's part of the Hong Kong government. It's called Invest Hong Kong. Just like investment agencies everywhere has a very clear mandate. What Hong Kong also has is a string of other bodies that contributes to the overall vibrancy of the economy and as an investment destination. For example, ourselves, the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, we are a testament to that. We were established in 1966 as a statutory body for trade promotion. And there are certainly other bodies similar to us, where they're more generalists, as well as those that are more focused on specific areas. Let's just say, for example, startups. We have the Hong Kong Cyberport and the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. Now, about the second part of this question, I think I mentioned earlier, Hong Kong has a very deep and deployable pool of capital, and it is capital sourced from many different sources, whether it's the more traditional financial institutions to more newer capital sources, whether it is the public or private capital. So, and also because of today's changing economy, the need to diversify investments is ever more important. Hong Kong investors are always on the lookout for the newest opportunities or developing opportunities. And of course, I think, their familiarity with the Korean market and of course with Jeju, not just as a place for business, but of course as a place for holiday, would definitely interest them. And some of the things that mentioned earlier, whether it's real estate or healthcare, and of course, 5G, etc. These are sectors that are very interesting to Hong Kong investors at the moment.
오케이, 땡큐. 네, 시간이 더 빨리 갔네요. 네, 그러면 마지막으로 우리
Lastly, let's hear from Professor Yoon.
반갑습니다, 윤 교수님.
It is nice to meet you. You have 6 minutes for your discussion time.
As brief, okay? Right. First of all, I'd like to very much appreciate Professor Gang to lead this session and kind invitation, and also Professor Zhou regarding mentioning about AI and also the blockchain technology. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm an expert in this cybersecurity in conjunction with artificial intelligence in this regard. I'm currently with the California University, and I'm teaching the MSc and PhD level of cybersecurity over here. I've been here almost 13 years, so time really passed. So I would like to point out two things. The one is AI and the blockchain technology for security. So in my opinion is that due to COVID-19, it has been accelerated for online trading, online education, because currently I'm not going home. I'm not going to university to teach. I just like Webvine and using a Zoom or the Teams to teach and communicate with my student and PhD students like that. So due to this and the fourth industrial revolution has been now at present now because of that. So in my opinion is that AI for the new technology for Jeju, for example, is that we have a passport. We all have a passport, but currently, in the future, we'll have a global passport, such as currently COVID-19. Tests need to be verified by everyone. okay, which is not a small job. It's a big deal because the recent government approach that quarantine has been lifted due to if you prove that you have taken the vaccination for 2 doses and after that you have the past the 21 days, then you are allowed to come to Korea without quarantine. And now how do you prove that that person has really has vaccination? Okay, and prove that all this is valid for internationally. So because of that, I would like to suggest blockchain technology. Currently, one of my PhD and postdoc students working on this area, and especially how to validate the vaccination using the web application. Actually, Korea is upfront at the moment because due to fourth industrial revolution, and we are here because of fast. We have advantages compared with other countries like in the world because we have a fantastic IT infrastructure, and because of that we can able to deliver on time and increasing efficiency and so on. So in my opinion that we can use blockchain, cross-blockchain technologies to verify the COVID-19 test validation. And that can be possible, because it is using a distributed ledger. So that as long as you have able to prove one has been registered, after that globally approved. So we can able to use such as distributed identifier. This is very hot topic at the moment, distributed identifier in blockchain. So that can be advantageous for Jeju. For example, if you come to all of the world, people come to enjoy the Jeju environment because I was the visiting professor at Jeju Jeju University. So I know that. So people coming because it's like Hawaii of Europe, Hawaii of Asia, and also Hawaii in the world because we are very attractive in Jeju because of that. So in my point of view is that who can combine the technology wisely, then you can able to prove that the COVID-19 vaccination approval and lifting the for example, the quarantine has been reduced or the exempted, for example. That's another example. And I'd like to talk about AI, artificial intelligence. AI is a fast-growing area. Now, cybersecurity for AI is upcoming, okay, emerging at the moment. And or some people call AI for cybersecurity. But I give an example. Like for example, when we have a biometrics. Biometric means we have a fingerprint, iris scan, and for example, our voice, and so on. And now we use our brain for EEG, brainwave. Actually, this kind of things can be uniquely identify each other. Now, your biometric can be passport itself. That you cannot able to tamper with your biometrics. So what I'm suggesting is that we can have global passport using our biometric. We don't have to use of course, you have used our passport as the proof that, but in addition, something you have like a token, like a passport, in conjunction with biometrics to enhance the you are who you are. For example, twins, for example. Twins can be look alike, right? And therefore, they cannot bypass it. But using a biometric, even identify the twins in the biometric technology. So what we do is we have recent research. We're using the iris, our face, okay? And this biometric we call multi-modality biometric in conjunction with AI using for example, using a deep learning because we have many sensors from the collection from the IoT devices. We can able to collect all this information and process it so that we can provide a biometric technology for that. So because in Jeju Island, it's because of people all over the world coming, how do you identify each other? Okay, to prove that that person is the real one. Okay, so we're using a biometric with a passport can be a good example. And also, as I mentioned to you, that blockchain technology can be applied for global vaccination program for approval. I think that can be useful for technology at the moment. And I think I have speak enough, but if you have any question, I can delight to answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
So we could hear great comments from the experts, like as his like focus area. We could have a great comment from the artificial intelligence and the blockchain. I could agree on many of the sectors and ideas that we just shared. So I believe that we did a really good job for promoting the blockchain technologies here. But still, Jeju citizens think the blockchain is connected, related with the cryptocurrencies. So there's a little concern, and because of the concern, there's a little like downside for the development of the blockchain. So the policymakers and the related experts will have to make a very well-made plan in order to remove those concerns. And currently, we have about 3 minutes left. So I'd like to see if there's any question from the floor or from the online audience. So if there are any question from the floor or audience, just feel free to raise your hand and ask us a question. Is there any question from the floor? Okay, here's a question. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you for all the participants for today's session, including including one speaker and the other panelists. Especially, I'd like to say thank you for proposing a direction for the workers on site. So Jeju will try its best efforts to expand this tourism industry to other sectors, including CT or the IT, or we are trying our best to attract active FDI, and that's our principle to proceed with. But unfortunately, we didn't make any visible outcomes yet. So actually, it was included in the presentation contents, as Professor Zhou mentioned. Previously, for the tourism development, we need a penalty for the completion level of the construction for the real estate development, and I agree with that. And currently, the realization of the smart grid or the bio industry should be more promoted, and again, I'd like to say thank you for proposing us a proper direction for those industries. But there are some difficulties on site for the IT, CT, or the PT. In order to attract investment in those industries, we have a very lacking network. And the basic model itself is lacking as well. In order to attract investment to the certain investment, what model should we pursue? For example, what kind of real estate or what kind of business model or what kind of philosophy should we pursue? So I believe that the basic model or the principle should be made first for facilitate works on workers on site. And the biggest problem is the promotional activities to attract foreign direct investment, but we don't have a specific target. So we can join the fair or the events, but actually it is insufficient to make success from those activities. So in that regard, I'd like to hear some suggestions or the proposals from the professor and experts here. Thank you very much. So you just share your ideas about the difficulties on site, but I feel sorry that we don't have enough time to give you an answer. So instead of giving you an answer here right now, so all the experts and the policymakers and the officials will have a side event to talk about it and discuss about it. So that will be my suggestion. So we can plan another meeting to address those problems. So the time has been up. So we could see a stark division and bipolarization of the FDI in Jeju Island for the capital and for the countries as well. So it was from the Chinese or the other countries. And also the FDI should be more economically advanced. So we already has an answer for the advancement of the FDI. So coincidentally, we could invite speakers and experts from various countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, and who are in the Arab Emirates. So we have a limit as an island, but it is not a problem. So in order to be Singapore or in order to be like Hong Kong, we have to secure our own sovereignty or the local authority. But in that regard, we still have the practical limitation, and that's what blocked us to benchmark other countries' cases, and that's my idea. So here we would like to conclude today's session titled The Paradigm Shift in Jeju's Investment Attraction Strategy and Policies Moving Forward. And lastly, once again, I'd like to say thank you for the speakers and panelists of today's session. Please give them a big round of applause. Once again, please give a big round of applause to all the participation. So here we'd like to conclude today's session. Thank you very much.